Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, I believe, if I recall correctly, we did somehow fill up the entire missing parts of the map. In addition to that, we also finally managed able to wrap things up everything for those island challenges. And in addition to that, though, we also did done quite a number of stuff, despite the fact that it's been about 2 days ago since we've last played this for sure. Mind you, because no matter what though, is that recently, I suppose no matter what though, is that I believe Ray did somehow finish up everything for the likes of Super Monkey Ball on a Nokia N-Gage recently. So because of that, I believe, relatively speaking though, is that I believe we've almost done every single Super Monkey Ball games up to this point. So because of that, but that particular topic can wait in a later time. So today for this video is potentially speaking though, when it comes to Sonic Frontiers, all things considered, is that we're about to be going on to another batch of the forms of those cyberspace segments. Now, despite the fact that we've already did manage to complete some of the missions anyway, whilst thankfully though, if you couldn't tell already, since we are now going to be going on to level 4-C, and by the way, we're going back into Green Hill Zone again, and I think out of all the actual cyberspace segments in the entire DLC by far, I believe to me is that 4-C is by far the easiest out of the bunch. Well, to be more specifically, when it comes to likely completing the stages normally. Although despite the fact that there are still some very tricky segments from time to time, most notably because if you couldn't tell already, we've once again met again with the forms of the Holy Ground Tails, so that way we can able to easily beat him for certain racing and stuff like that. So, but anywho though, so I suppose we should probably save that particular continuation topic on that particular part until for later, because recently is that, well, today's date is of course there's the 30th of November today, in some cases in 2023 today, and today's the day is the final day of November during the course of in 2023, before we move on to the final month of 2023, which is of course, you know what I'm saying, December. And what makes it a little bit more exciting as far as I'm concerned, we've only just got about 1 week left until the Game Awards 2023 is going to take place. So because of that, still I'm pretty excited to see what specific games they claim their rewards and stuff like that. But I suppose that again, that particular topic can wait until God knows, until whenever we decided able to do the last few Let's Plays in 2023 before we move on to 2024. Or potentially speaking of about the fact that I believe that Silver is about to able to go back onto Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link at some point eventually. So either way though, because time will tell, because I believe between both, you know what I'm saying, Sonic Frontiers alongside with Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link are gonna be, without doubt, the most trickiest games to play through so far. So because of that, yeah, despite my commentary is a little bit bare bones at the moment, mainly because no matter what though, that's as far as we can able to actually explain any of those specific topics worth noting for, in regards to the forms of the Final Horizon DLC update for Sonic Frontiers. I mean, after all, that we've basically almost finishing up everything up to this point, so no matter what though, is about the fact that sometimes I will admit though right away, is that trying to go through several cyberspace segments while looking back on it though, that is still incredibly difficult. And no matter what though, is about the fact that thankfully, unlike any forms of how it does it on any other cyberspace segments in Journey forms of the Final Horizon DLC update, thankfully level 4-C is the only cyberspace segment in the entire DLC that does not require us to able to utilize sending those animals into their safe spots, which thank goodness for that, especially concerning for the fact that unlike the other stages that, my god, no matter how many times I was expecting to try and able to complete those missions, not just by the forms of my own time on the Switch version, but also same applies with the Xbox One version as well, because relatively speaking is that you are basically nerfed, like as a result you won't be able to boost and On top of that, you won't be able to homie attack, and also not to mention, you can't spin dash at all. So you have to specifically try to able to carry those animals very safely without even able to actually bump into certain enemies as well as certain obstacles like these Eggman springs. Not only that, you have to avoid a lot of slope collusion things. So because of that, yeah, that's gonna be one of those examples about the fact that this is easily without doubt is my least favorite aspect in Journey forms of the Final Horizon DLC so far. So, but I digress. So, something's worth noting for, in regards to the forms of how the fact that I did say that I was expecting to able to mention about the forms of what specific announcements they brings us into, in regards of the forms of the recent ND World, in some cases the final ND World presentation, for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Direct presentations lineup for the majority of 2023. And I'm gonna say, there are only two things I was really looking forward to, even though it's kind of unfortunate that Freedom Planet 2 does not make an appearance during the course of the final ND World presentation, but I suppose that's gonna be okay for that particular parts worth noting for, because it might still say it's still expected to be releasing during at some point and during the forms of it next month in December this year. So who knows? But either way, to begin with the forms of the ND World presentation they shown us first of all, is apparently though, we're about to be getting yet another Shantae game, except this time it appears to be based off from a lost Game Boy Advance game, which as a result, yes, we're about to be getting Shantae Advance Risky Revolution for not only on PC, but also with the forms of the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and of course, Nintendo Switch. So, yeah, pretty cool as far as I'm usually concerned with that stuff, especially concerning for the fact that at this point in time, I've almost collected every single Shantae games digitally wise, in terms of the Nintendo Switch platform, because let me tell you, Shantae is a really cool series in my opinion. So either way though, yeah, it's pretty cool that we've now able to actually have not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 total Shantae games, or should I say 6 Shantae games in total when it comes to the forms of the Nintendo Switch release. So it's kind of a bummer though, is that the Xbox One versions or Xbox systems never seemed able to get Shantae Advance Risky Revolution. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer though. But hey, at least I'm very excited able to actually finally get a chance to play Shantae Advance Risky Revolution, and I think it's about to be releasing at some point in next year in 2024. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that, especially it's finally come to its public release or something like that. So yeah, at the very least I don't need to worry about just trying to incorporate with the actual cartridge version or something like that by Limited Run Games company wise. So at the very least though, I can still able to actually get the game digitally on my Switch. So that should be pretty cool, at least as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, the next game they did revealed during the course of the ND World, and that's what appears to be by the forms of Core Keeper. That's also going to be releasing in 2024. In fact, kind of thinking about it, the majority of some games is going to be releasing in 2024, while some of them are pretty much the only exception. So because of that, which I'll explain more about it later down the road, so yeah, as a result, yeah, Core Keeper is going to be releasing until summer 2024 sometime. So it could be either be June, July, or August, or in rare occasions for May or something like that. Or I suppose, again, we should probably save that particular topic in the future times. So anyway, the next game after that, it appears to be by the forms of On Your Tail, and I believe that game is also going to be releasing during 2024. But after that, there's also going to be Howl, which as a result, it did recently came out just recently for about a few days ago. Again, better late than never, I suppose, when it comes to mentioning several announcements based off of the forms of the ND World presentation showcase, as far as I'm aware. I mean, let's face it though, it's about the fact that I'm already excited for when it comes to likely getting yet another Shantae game on the Nintendo Switch downloadable version, so at the very least I'm still pretty much hyped for that. So anyway, the next game after that, which appears to be by the forms of the star named EOS, I think is what it says anyway, and that's going to be releasing at some point on spring 2024. So that should be something, alright. And the next game they did somehow revealed during the course of in the ND world, and that's what appears to be Backpack Hero. So yeah, it seems kind of weird. Now I believe that game has also been released just recently, so about a couple of days ago or something like that. So I'm guessing that probably explains it for the sake of the forms of the amount of unexpected announcements for the sake of the forms of the ND developers. So anyway, the next game after that, which appears to be by the forms of, I would say, Blade Charama, I think is what it says anyway, and that's going to be releasing and doing at some point in spring next year, so that's something. And the next game after that, which appears to be a Highland Song, and I believe, if I recall correctly, is that that game is going to be confirmed to be released as on 5th of December, which is roughly exactly the same day as when Sonic Dream Team is going to be releasing. So, oh yeah, speaking of Sonic Dream Team, actually, we did somehow manage to able to saw a full-fledged animated intro for the likes of the forms of Sonic Dream Team, and let me tell you, it looks super spectacular, even though I was ashamed about the fact that that game has been locked out behind, you know what I'm saying, with Apple Arcade exclusive. So because of that though, yeah, I can totally see why a lot of Sonic fans out there will be expected to be incredibly disappointed about the fact that it's only locked out behind the Apple Arcade services and stuff like that. Like, they really wish if they were able to actually port the game over to consoles, but I highly doubt it though, mainly because of a developer or a publisher as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, it seems pretty cool that not only Sonic Dream Team, alongside with the forms of a Highland Song, is going to be releasing on the exactly same time between the two, on the 5th of December. So because of that, yeah, pretty cool and pretty substantial at the same time, at least as far as I'm aware. So anyway, the next game after that, which appears to be by the forms of Moonstone Island, and as far as I'm aware, it's going to be releasing in also during the forms of in spring this year, or spring next year, as far as what I meant to say. Again, I apologize if my commentary is a little bit slightly iffy at this point, because, I mean, I just want to get this game done and over with before we move on to Sonic Superstars at some point in during the forms of it next year, or perhaps even maybe, if I were to decide able to actually go back on play on my Nintendo Switch, that also means about the fact that, unfortunately though, I still need to able to actually just trying to go back onto not only Super Mario RPG, just able to finish up the entire remake on my own time, so just to ensure from my practice run or something like that, but also, get this, is that I'm afraid to tell you, I don't think I can probably go back onto Pikmin 4 anytime soon. Neither did The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom either, but that's just mainly because of this game right here, Sonic Frontiers, where it comes to ridiculous completion requests. Like, whoever thought that particular challenge was actually a, well, I've already explained about this, because as a result, it becomes one of the worst games I have ever played if you decide to go for a completionist. So, yeah, you can totally see why about the fact that how much I think that this is easily the most time-consuming Let's Play I've ever done, especially concerning for the fact that, well, at the very least with Super Mario Odyssey, that getting those power moons is actually ridiculously easy, while in some missions are usually kind of hellish to complete, mainly for instance with the actual beach volleyball one, as well as the forms of one of those cappy-less obstacles as far as I'm concerned. But in here though, it's just about the fact that every time, again, if you screw up at one point, you have to go for the entire collectathon all over again. And it's just, you know, kind of time consuming in the process. So, which is also it's bad enough about the fact that in addition, if I was trying to able to go after or completing a lot of missions for the cyberspace segments, I also want to address something about this as well. I'm also decided to aim for the S rank runs, which, as a result, there are also for bragging rights. So just to ensure for the fact that I just want to get this game completed before we move on to the next Sonic Let's Play or something like that. Usually, like I said before, Sonic Superstars, once we get around into that, maybe we could probably do that by that time when Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, is going to be almost approaching. During at some point in next year at this point right now. So, anyways, back into what I was saying about the forms of the ND World presentations they somehow brings us into. The next game they did somehow revealed, which appears to be Death Trick Double Blind, and I think that's going to be releasing until next year in 2024. Now, I believe the demo for that game did already came out, so that's something, I suppose. And, the next game after that, which appears to be Outer Wilds, Archaeologist Edition, or something like that. Again, I apologize for that mispronunciation of that specific word. I was gonna able to address something, because let's face it though, it's been a very long time since we've actually watched something related to ND World presentation, ever since in, I believe, if I recall correctly, the last time we actually able to watch something related to ND World was back in sometime in summer or something like that. It could be on summer season or something, so but even then no. Yeah. And I believe Outer Wilds is going to be releasing on the Switch, and that's going to be releasing on the 7th of December. So because of that, I think it's roughly the exactly the same time as when the 5th anniversary of the forms of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's release will able to come for its fruition. So, and I believe, much like the forms of how it does it on Metroid Prime Remastered, in addition with Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2 combined into one, as a result, no matter what though, it's also getting a physical release during the course of Outer Wilds for the Switch version. So, now I think it's about to due out at some point in 2024 for the physical version. Sometime in 2024, I should say. And in addition to that, after that, they've shown us some other highlights for upcoming games for the majority of 2024 and beyond. Such as, for instance, there's also going to be Planet of Luna, and that's going to be releasing at some point in next spring, in spring 2024, so that's something. And in addition to that, there's also Enjoy the Diner. That's going to be, well, I think, if I recall correctly, Enjoy the Diner did already came out just recently. So because of that, yeah, it seems very unexpected. And in addition to that, there's also Heavenly Bodies, and I believe that's going to be releasing at some point in February in 2024, which is roughly the same month as when Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake for the Nintendo Switch is also going to be on its way. So because of that, usually, kind of think about it, in roughly the exactly the same time as well, for the 13th anniversary of the Maxi Toys YouTube department. So, yeah, it seems pretty cool though, especially concerning for the fact that we have no idea if we decided able to jump right into Mario vs. Donkey Kong Remake straight away, but I'm sure we're able to actually figure something out. So, anyway, and the next game after that, which appears to be the Get-Go Gods, I think is what it says anyway, that's going to be releasing at some point in spring 2024. So, yeah, that's something, I guess. And after that, there's also the city simulation game called Passport Out 2, The Lost Artist, and I believe that game also is releasing just recently as well. So because of that, in just about a couple of days ago, potentially. So, and the next game after that, which appears to be Urban Meth Dissolution Center, and I believe that's going to be releasing at some point in 2024. Not exactly sure when exactly, but I digress. And finally, perhaps even the most exciting one out of them all to me though, Braid is finally coming to the Nintendo Switch after all these years. So, yeah, pretty awesome and fantastic at the same time, because I've definitely heard about that game, potentially speaking. So as a result, no matter what though, if that is about to be releasing on the Switch, I am seriously going to be able to get that game, if depending on the forms of that particular price though. That's the only problem. So because of that, I believe is that the release date for Braid Anniversary Edition, as what the actual thing is going to say, I think it's about to due out in 2024 in sometime in April 30th. So I think that's potentially on Friday because of the forms of how the fact that 2024 is going to be the leap year for sure. Not only that though, just because also because the forms of the Paris Summer Olympics is going to be able to take place. So yeah, a lot of things to able to be looking forward to for the sake of time. So, and I believe that's about it, basically. So there's only 2 things I was really excited about, which are Shantae Advance Risky Revolution and Braid Anniversary Edition is finally coming to the Nintendo Switch. So that means you can now able to finally play the game on the go. So even then, no, I'm just seriously looking forward to see how these games plays out to be, although I'm pretty sure they are only going to be on digital software as far as I'm concerned, which, to be honest, I'm perfectly fine with that, especially concerning for the fact that those are like considerably the indie games, basically, which, as I said before, the only drawback with that particular indie world presentation, I will admit though right away, is that there is no information when it comes to the forms of Freedom Planet 2, and on top of that, still no luck of the forms of Hollow Knight Silksong, which, I mean, what is this? It's been like 5 years since when, or almost 5 years ago, since that particular game did able to get some new gameplay footage from the likes of Nintendo E3 2019 conference or something like that, which I get it does take a bit of a long time to make, and on top of that, we've now have the ability to able to realize that it's going to be releasing on any other platforms in the future, ranging from PlayStation systems like PS4, PS5, as well as Xbox systems with Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and you name the rest. So, but either way, that's as far as I can think about it. Oh, and I believe about the fact, no matter what though, is that when it comes to Shantae Advance Risky Revolution is usually going to be made by Way Forward, so as a result, yeah, it's been back after the events of 20 years. So, yeah, as a result, no matter what though, and it's going to be featuring the rearranged stages in a full-player battle mode. So, yeah, that's actually pretty dope and pretty awesome at the same time. So, anyway though, there's also another thing I want to address something about this as well, is that during the course of my own time, I somehow finally managed able to obtain, despite the fact that I still pretty much going back into Mario Kart Tour quite often, but that again though, I'm probably not going to be able to go into that particular atrocious Team Rally Tour, which as a result it's Peach versus Bowser again, except the notable differences being is that I'm actually going to be ignoring the actual Team Rally system because I still despise that system. And anyway, yeah, I somehow managed able to get myself my next Mii Racing suit after all, which appears to be the Moo Mii Racing Surge, which is obviously a cow Mii Racing Surge, despite the fact that we technically already got that now, thanks to the forms of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe after all, thanks to the forms of the DLC department. I thought it was a little bit interesting about the fact that when it comes to revealing, the majority of some tracks from the likes of the forms of Star Cup, based off of Mario Kart Wii, likely for instance about the fact that, when Mario Kart 8 originally came out on the Wii U, that we did somehow got Grumble Volcano, but then later on, during the course of in 2022 and 2023 respectively, that we actually got ourselves Maple Treeway, part of the forms of, I would say, during the course of in the Rock Cup, and on top of that, we got Koopa Cape from the likes of in the Cherry Cup, and now we've able to actually got ourselves Daisy Circuit from the likes of in the Acorn Cup. So, I thought it was pretty interesting about the fact that we actually able to actually got those specific Star Cup tracks based off of Mario Kart Wii in a reverse order. So, yeah, it seems pretty interesting, all things considered, which still, no wonder why, that Mario Kart Wii is considerably their fan-favorite Mario Kart game they've ever played, which is almost gone to a point about the fact that, like we said before, that we've got 11 courses from Mario Kart Wii out of 16. So it's almost in a perfect lineup, concerning for the fact that we're still missing on, you know what I'm saying, with Luigi Circuit, and as well as Toad Factory, Mario Circuit, Bowser's Castle, or Bowser Castle as far as what I meant to say, and also Dry Ruins. So, yeah, that's as far as I was expecting for the sake of time. So, but, either way, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, is that, potentially speaking though, better late than never I suppose, again, so as a result, happy 20th anniversary of the film's release of Looney Tunes Back in Action, which, it's definitely kind of feels like a almost like a spiritual successor to the films of Space Jam, with the films of cartoon characters came to life in reality world, or something like that. Despite the fact that I still have not seen the film yet, but that's just mainly because I'm pretty much still gonna be excited for the sake of the films of hopefully trying to see, you know what I'm saying, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Kung Fu Panda 4, and on top of that, also save lives with Inside Out 2, and many other films coming up for it. So because of that, oh, another subject for this point for this matter though, is apparently though, sadly to tell you, is that one of those Pixar's TV series called Win or Lose has officially been delayed until next year in 2024. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. And in addition to that, I believe, if I was assuming correctly, sadly though, is potentially speaking though, is that one of those newest Disney films that ever came out, which appears to be known as Wish, sadly though, the critics' review seems able to get a lot of mixed receptions. So because of that, I honestly have no words to say about this, especially considering for the fact that I still haven't get a chance to see that film yet. Well, maybe at some point, once I will check it out, when it comes out on Disney Plus eventually. But even then though, because I just seriously cannot afford able to actually go into cinemas anytime soon, unless if there are some interesting films I was really looking forward to seeing, like I said before with Kung Fu Panda 4 and all that stuff. Oh, in addition to that, only 15 more days to go until Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget is going to be releasing on Netflix. So, even though I feel a little bit worried about the fact that I don't think it's possible for the DVD release or something like that, but I suppose we'll figure something out in the future. And unfortunately though, Aardman is almost running out of clay, at least what I've heard about it anyway. So because of that, yeah, it seems to be more specifically, I just feel like that 2023 definitely feels like a mixed bag year once again, ever since enjoying the films within 2022. Although don't get me wrong, there are some interesting parts for sure, but then again, it's probably best if we let Maxi were able to mention about a lot of stuff once we get close towards the end of 2023 for sure. So, but anyway, there's also another thing I want to address something about this as well, is that during the course of the past few days as well, that, you know, with the recent Splatfest, in some cases Splatfest number 11 for Splatoon 3, that basically though, they did get the results in for the likes of the forms of Fist Bump, or in some cases Handshake, Fist Bump versus Hug. And as a result, the winner of that particular catalog is, well, Team Handshake. So because of that, only 30 points, and on top of that, Team Fist Bump, which did receive 27 points, and strangest of them all though, is that Team Hug receives none of those. So I honestly have no idea why that particular thing has been ignored throughout the majority of the sake of time. But either way though, I suppose that's something, I suppose. So, oh, and another thing too is that, well, happy 15th anniversary of the film's release of Bolt. And let me tell you, it's been donkey's years since I actually have last seen the film, ever since when I used to have it on DVD, but unfortunately though, I no longer have that on DVD, clearly because of quite noticeable reasons. It's because, well, I just feel like started able to be collecting certain Disney films from my childhood. So that's what I was expecting for this point. But although, don't get me wrong, it is a really good time though, but I would have able to actually think it's not one of my favorites, but at least it's something, I suppose, like I said before. So anyway, oh, speaking of which though, unfortunately though, is about the fact that, originally though, that's, although kind of thinking about it though, I suppose it's probably best if we let, Maxi or someone else for that matter were able to mention about that particular topic at some point. But relatively speaking though, what I've noticed is that Super Mario Bros. Wonder has recently received the actual version update, specifically, or the patch update as far as I meant to say. And I believe Super Mario Bros. Wonder is actually now on version 1.0.1. And what features they're added in? Well, I'll tell you exactly how. Basically though, they've addressed something related to the heart points, and as a result, the heart points particular topic, they did stated this. Selecting restart or exit course will revert points to what they were before entering the course. So, yeah, I guess it's that. And also, they've addressed something related to the staff credits for some reason. Like, for instance, there are some additions and adjustments have been made to staff names. So, I guess it's that. And general updates able to bring up several issues have been addressed to improve the gameplay experience. And that's about it, basically. So, yeah, quite minor. But as a result, that at the very least, it actually did receive the actual patch update. So, oh, and on the subject for this point, for this matter though, is that since about a couple of days ago, I somehow finally get a chance to receive not one, but 2 unlockable characters from the likes of Sonic Dash, and those are Surge as well as the forms of Infinite. So as a result, I'm very happy to be able to actually have those 2 unlockable characters right now, despite the fact that I'm still not a big fan of the forms of the unlocking character system, thanks to the forms of those godforsaken cards that I have to keep on collecting. So because of that, well, usually during around that time, whenever I do manage to go back onto Sonic Dash on my own time for a bit, I was literally so close to able to actually get Surge at one point, because I was off by 1 card left during one of those multiple runs. Because as a result, at one point, I was expecting to able to try to aim for 300 character cards for Surge. And next thing you know, as soon as I finished one of those runs, I was off by 1 card left, and I have to do a last rerun until I'm able to actually unlock Surge. And because of that, yeah, I hate that sometimes, especially considering for the fact that it does kind of reminds me like I was like 1 coin away or 1 point off for certain situations, but still, it's incredibly inconsistent sometimes. But either way, speaking of which though, is about the fact that I believe, as far as I'm getting Infinite, as far as I'm concerned, in Sonic Dash, it only took me about quite a few hours to able to actually just do like, well, actually it only took me about a couple of minutes to able to actually not only unlock Surge, but also save players with Infinite as well. So because of that, yeah, I'm feeling quite proud for myself when it comes to getting those 2 particular characters I somehow do need. When it comes to completing Sonic Dash or something like that, when it comes to the character roster and stuff like that. Although, kind of thinking about it, when it comes to Mario Kart Tour anyway, I did somehow manage to able to caught up for the actual character roster, which as a result, I'm now on to 170 drivers out of 265. So as a result, I'm pretty much now on 95 drivers left. So because of that, yeah, it does take quite a while to able to actually unlock this process, but still, still not a big fan of Mario Kart Tour again, which, as you probably already know, because still controls are pretty bad, and not only that though, it just feels kind of awkward to play, especially, I get it because of the forms of how the fact it plays specifically for mobile players, but still. Anyway, oh yeah, let's talk about the forms of a surprising thing to note, is that with that particular familiar villain from the likes of Despicable Me, specifically the first film in the series, that's the villain called Vector. Apparently, Vector do somehow return from the likes of that new Despicable Me short. So, yeah, that seems pretty interesting. And I believe that particular short was called, I'm not exactly sure what that's usually called, actually, because I know for a fact that it's been about quite a few months ago since I actually known about Illumination, ever since when, you know, the Super Mario Bros. Movie first came out on a big screen, alongside with the forms of the DVD and Blu-ray release. So, even then, that might be saying something, I guess. So, oh, and by the way, during the course of Cyberspace 4-E, if you couldn't tell already, we actually have ourselves our new level gimmick, where basically there was actually a bomb that's about to take off. So as a result, we need to make our way towards the end of the level fast, because otherwise, if the time runs out, basically you die instantly, and you have to restart the whole entire level all over again. But again, no checkpoints at all, so you have to be able to like, oh, there are a couple of times though that we will come across into specific clocks that you can able to pick up from. You know, this particular concept does remind me of a similar situation as the forms of not only in Super Mario Galaxy, or potentially speaking of Super Mario Galaxy 2 as far as what I meant to say, but also with the forms of Super Mario 3D Land, and especially noticeable with Super Mario 3D World as well, that you have to collect a certain amount of clocks in order able to actually just to increase the time limit. So, yeah, that's something is usually as far as I'm usually concerned with, so... Anyways though, oh, and another thing too, yes, it's been about 13 days ago, it's that happy 20th anniversary of the game's release of the introductioning series of a really dang good franchise of RPGs, after all, which appears to be Mario Luigi Superstar Saga for the Game Boy Advance. So yeah, it's been 20 years ago since when Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga first came out on the Game Boy Advance, so... pretty cool, and while looking back on it though, specifically the GBA version, it's kind of hard for me to get back into that particular version, I will admit though right away. Mainly because no matter what though, sometimes pulling off certain attacks can be felt a bit tricky at times, especially concerning with all this momentum and everything, so... but that's something I suppose. So, anyways though, oh yeah, I should also want to address something about this as well. Sadly though, The Marvels has recently received the box office bomb. So because of that though, yeah, it comes up as no surprise about the fact no matter what though, there's a lot of controversials out there for the likes of the films that specific film in mind. I mean, usually I still haven't seen it just yet though, because I'm still concerning of waiting until when it comes out on Disney Plus as well. So... anyway, oh yeah, speaking of Sonic Superstars, I did somehow found out certain information for the sake of the films of the Nintendo Switch version. As far as I'm aware, they've addressed quite a number of things on the Switch version. Like, for instance, there is no dramatic resolution scaling, and on top of that, native 720p output on handheld mode, and some stages run below 720p. Resolution seems to top out at 720p even when docked on the Switch version, and you probably already know for the fact that the texture resolution is scaled back on the Switch version, which we've already addressed that, or in some cases we already pointed things out, and also surfaces largely blurrier. And on top of that, texture filtering also, it seems, poor. And on top of that, depth of field blur suffered on Switch. And lighting cuts way back as well. No shadows on the Switch version, which is very bizarre. And water appears upwards in the Switch version. Although luckily, the Switch version of Sonic Superstars is actually targeted at 60 FPS. So usually 60 frames per second, so that's a good thing. Which, as a result, that could be subbed up as such. And also, there are some hiccups early on, but mostly smooth. And frame rate drops when too many characters or objects on screen. And more frequent frame rate issues over time. Worst sections with frame rate drops seem to be boss battles. And online mode runs pretty poor on the Switch version. And also the Switch version is very responsive with in-manual input lag, I think is what it says anyway. And there was one of those annoying moments whenever I got to the point, whenever I was almost finishing up the main playthrough. Not only that, but with two playthroughs of the game potentially, which again I'm probably not going to spoil things too much, my game keep on crashing every time whenever I move on to the final stage. When it comes to the forms of two specific playthroughs, and as a result, it just kicks me out of the game. So because of that, yeah, it's gonna be one of those technical issues for the likes of the Switch version, which I've never actually come across into that issue from the likes of the forms of the Xbox One version just yet though. Although, let me know in the comments down below if you do come across into that specific weird game crash bug during the course of the forms of Sonic Superstars on the Switch version anyway. So, anyway though, in terms of another thing I should probably address something about this as well, is that, it looks like that specifically until next month, which is December mind you, it looks like the next Nintendo 64 game is going to be appeared during the course of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack at some point in next month. And as it turns out, rather than 1080 snowboarding, because as a result, it's going to be Jet Force Gemini, made by Rare, of course. So, that honestly caught me by surprise, concerning for the fact that recently we've already got you know what I'm saying, with Banjo-Kazooie and GoldenEye 007 made by Rare during the course of the forms of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. So who knows, maybe the next one could be likely or so after Jet Force Gemini will be, I don't know, Diddy Kong Racing, or Donkey Kong 64, or Banjo-Tooie, or even Perfect Dark. Who knows? Well, I suppose we'll might as well find out during, God knows if they decide to do the first ever Nintendo Direct presentation during the course of in 2024, usually sometime in February at the usual time, or something like that. So, who knows? But, yeah, I'm actually very curious to know how that seems to be the case. So, anyway, and also, someone sent the comments down below during the course of our Let's Play of, I would say, since in the Powerpuff Girls games or something like that. As it turns out, is that, in case if I missed something, is that Disney News in the actual comments is that Disney has confirmed that not only Frozen 3 was actually still in development, but apparently though, Disney has confirmed that Frozen 4 is in development, and I was like, what? Are you for real? I mean, seriously, whoever thought that they just, I don't know, rushed it or something? Or perhaps even maybe because they thought that they want money or something like that, when it comes to after the events of certain box office performance issues for the likes of certain films or something. I mean, this is getting bizarre. Likely, for instance, about the fact no matter what though, I just have no words of how they decided able to actually go for that stuff. So, anyway, and it's also worth noting for is that I've noticed right from the start though, is that the reason why that Piranha Plant pipeline got cut from Wave 6 from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is, potentially speaking though, is that it looks like the majority of the people out there did say it is actually way too similar to Piranha Plant Pipeway or Piranha Plant Slide for those of you who lived in North America. So, I guess that makes it pretty obvious because the forms of, you know what I'm saying, with that exactly same level structure or the racetrack structure. So that could be primal reason for it. So, but aside from all that stuff though, that's as far as I can usually say about the forms of today's discussion, I'm afraid. Although, apart from the fact that for one thing in mind, is that potentially speaking though, is that it looks like no matter what though, that like we said before, we've only just got about 1 day left until we move on to the 12th and the final month of 2023, which, yeah, that could be something else entirely, so. Also, for what I've just realized about the fact that it seems to be more specifically though, is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe's timeline when it comes to tomato meter scores has gone pretty consistent. I mean, on the other hand, in the first half is actually not too shabby. Like, the highest one is obviously Black Panther, like usually I'm referring to as the actual YouTube channel called Video Clips, made by Rotten Tomatoes, I'm pretty sure. That obviously though is about the fact that no matter what though, when it comes to the first half of the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe image, that seems the highest rated movie so far, which appears to be by the forms of obviously Black Panther. Although the lowest one out of the bunch though is, potentially speaking though, is a type between Thor, The Dark World, and potentially speaking though, The Incredible Hulk. But either way, that's saying something, I guess. But then when it gets to the point until on the second half of that particular image, it seems that, you know what I'm saying, the review scores has gone pretty consistent by critics alike when it comes to Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, or in some cases in some series every once in a while. Like, I know for the fact that the weakest one so far, it appears to be by the forms of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and on top of that is about the fact that no matter what though, the highest rated movie so far, when it comes to the second half, in terms of the forms of that image as far as I'm aware, mind you, it's been a very long while since I actually explained some of these things, but as a result, bizarrely enough, Miss Marvel has actually received 98%, which I was not expecting that to begin with, but hey, at least it's something, I suppose. And when it comes to likely also, for the sake of the forms of the Marvels right now, it did somehow receive 62%, which I was not expecting to be a little bit lower than the forms of how it does it on any other Marvel Cinematic movies by far, but usually consistently enough though, is most notably because obviously with all this particular trouble production values for the likes of not only for its box office performance, and not only that though, because of the runtime as well. So because of that though, mind you, it's pretty hard to explain about any of those things, I will have to be quite frank. But exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that maybe at some point in the next few Marvel Cinematic Universe I was really looking forward to, and also checking out as well, which there are What If Season 2, and on top of that, until 2024, there's also going to be Madame Web, and also Deadpool 3, and of course, Kraven the Hunter, and finally, Venom 3, at least as far as I'm aware. So, but either way though, despite the fact that I've never actually seen any of those Venom films, as far as I can remember, at least as far as I'm aware. But then again, though, I apologize if my commentary is a little bit slightly iffy at this point, because, I mean, let's face it though, I've already explained quite a few things worth noting for, and usually, relatively speaking though, that's as far as I can usually say about it, and yeah, this can take quite a while to able to actually complete this particular process when it comes to likely completing all the missions throughout, but either way though, because still, we on the 50th part right now, which is insane. Especially concerning for the fact that, I mean, still, no matter what though, is that maybe potentially it's going to be likely exactly the same situation as Super Mario Odyssey. Although, who knows? Time will tell. So, I suppose no matter what though, with that being said, we got the endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Frontiers. Is potentially speaking though, we are still going to be playing through several of Cyberspace segments from time to time. And exponentially, I'm also wearing a different outfit this time. So, yeah, I will see you guys until on the 5th of December. Later, fellas.